Hello everyone, this is Pokey Viking with a W, talking about everything investment in Europe. Today I'm bringing you a topic that I would like to discuss with you overall when it comes to budget investing and how to make the best decisions possible when you're deciding what to buy, when to buy, and how to buy it. So I'm going to try to put this into some kind of rule set that would make your life somewhat easier to uh, base your decisions upon and probably will make you happy in the long run on what you have bought and invested in. So without further ado, I will jump into the topic right away. So the overall gist of investing, I mean, people normally tend to talk about sealed only as an investment. I'm also an advocate for sealed product, but people also like to collect, like this is also a hobby in a sense, and people try to, at least also me and people that I know of, they also like to buy stuff that they like or they feel like they want to own for their own personal benefit, not just to have it as an investment. So the discussion will revolve around not only sealed product, but you should think also about rock art slabs, probably even grading or even like Japanese products. What investment vehicle can that be for your money that you would invest every month? So this model scenario that we will be talking about is around like 250 euros budget per month. So thinking about what it would be for best for your money each month to be invested in, you should know that you shouldn't waste that budget on stuff that you don't really want. That's the main goal of this hobby, not buying stuff that you don't think is worth your time, your investment, and your overall happiness. What I mean by that is that there are a lot of YouTube channels that tell you that hey, this set is at a very low price. You should buy it just because every Pokemon investment goes up and what have you. Please don't do that. At least if you are a long-term holder and you don't value your time, I'm an advocate for buying sets or at least products that make sense and have the best return on investment for what you're investing every month. Now, that being said, we will dive a little bit deeper into that thought. Make sure you invest those 250 euros every month. Why? It is because if I heard some theories and people also talk about like, hey, if there isn't like a good set to invest in, shouldn't I hold my money and save it and then use all that saved up capital to buy a lot of products from that set? It's not a bad approach, but there are two very distinguished flaws with that approach. One being is that if your money is sitting idle and not being invested in anything, your money is being eaten by inflation, and that's just a monetary thing that is normal if you understand economics. Unfortunately, we're talking about investment, so and you invest just for the pure fact of beating the inflation. So that's fact number one. Fact number two is if you think about it, and this also happened to me with Ascended Heroes, for example, I thought that I will go the route of not spending my 250 euros, that I will wait for Ascended Heroes, which is not a bad thing because Ascended Heroes was like, if you understand the space, the set to go to with that kind of money. But the problem with that was at the time of release, every shop was limited to only one product, and you are talking about a limitation for I bought my first box at 75 euros, then my second box at 90 euros. So where does the rest of the money go then? What are you left with, right? You aren't allowed to buy more on these price amounts, so a lot of money will be stagnant. Naturally, you can go to card market, right, or any other online shop, which makes sense for you to like look up if there are the prices. Apologies, the prices are on a very good level for you to buy in, but at the time the prices weren't at the level of stone shops and your local game shops. So if you're limited to the one quantity amount of buying one product only, then you are forced to overpay the amount of money for one product on the internet, right? So on average, if your money cost averaging, then your cost basis is skewed overall. My advice, therefore, being if you had only like 250 euros at your disposal, you would be much better off buying it from the card shop or whichever retailer. With that amount of money, you would be satisfied going home with everything that you wanted for the money and even having some leftovers for probably like next month. But if you didn't do that, then you would be left with a lot of capital that would be sitting idle for even a longer time. Now there's a strategical decision to be made there. Do you want to buy overpriced product at that point, at the day of release, just because you have a lot of money to spare? I guess the safe bet is to say if we go with this ideology that we need to spend everything, then it means probably yes. In Ascended Heroes, it was much more forgiving because the price shot up very quickly. But with other sets previously, I think you would overspend. So be wise with your spending. Depending on your budget, make sure that the amount of money is spent on that month at least, right? So that leads us to another question, like what it is that we should buy in order to spend that amount of money. Now, made this diagram of my thought process of how to invest in Pokemon cards, and as I mentioned, this is also tailored towards people that are not only into sealed products, but also towards like the raw cards or even graded cards, probably also in Japanese. So let's go from top to bottom, how you should make your decisions. And I'm not saying you should do this exactly the way that I do it. It's just I'm more satisfied of doing this way, and it took me a really long time to figure it out. Like how should I cater towards my investments in order to have everything that I would want to have when it comes to like the Pokemon cards and also have like sealed products and everything. And I found this to be the most effective decision-making process. So first things first, as I already said, like sealed is king over all the English sets, but you should be also cautious not to buy every set. I would at least say not buy every set, purely from the standpoint that every set performs differently. What is your best buck? What's the saying? What's the best buck for your time or whatever it is? If you spend like 250 euros on battle styles at MSRP or 250 euros on Evolving Skies, did you do a good decision? Think about it for a second, and I think you will really know the answer to a long term. How did you use up your time with the amount that you spend on that particular product? Now I learned this the hard way. I bought sets like Paradox Rift, Battle Styles, and I don't know what else. And then I realized after some years, and Battle Styles is about like 6 years old now, right? And it hasn't climbed much. So I took that investment, sold it, and I bought something that makes a lot more sense, like Ascended Heroes and stuff like that. But I learned it the hard way, and I have my criteria now by which I will go and buy the products that I want to buy for investments. So the first thing is the product hyped? Normally, you would say yes, like every new set is kind of hyped, but not all sets are hyped equally. That just goes to show when you see what are the chase cards within the specific set. Like, do they also have like the nostalgia effect of the Kanto Pokemon, for example, Gen 1 and Gen 2, or even other Pokemon that are currently very popular, like, I don't know, Greninja, for example. So, depending on these Pokemon, you should also account for how many popular Pokemon are in this set. Like, how many Pokemon are there from the top 30 most liked chased Pokemon cards overall? Like, how many Pikachus, Charizards, or whatever it is that are in the set? Like, Ascended Heroes right now is a good example of the set that has the biggest variety of these nostalgia and top 30 Pokemons in them. Also, some people, and including me, look for the art in all those cards. And in modern days, like for example, the Shinji Kanda cards, it's the artists, right? So if all these factors are checked, you see like, okay, everything's there. I would like to invest in this product. And this answer is yes, and what you should buy in that case. So you have a budget of 250 euros. Now, in modern times, you would buy only one booster box, right? But it is what it is. Still, use that money and buy that booster box. It won't get any cheaper. Now, at this point with a booster box, your budget might be probably spent. With ETBs in modern times, you would most probably buy only like two ETBs. I'm not including like Pokemon Center ETBs because in the EU they are not available if at all, and if they are, they are overpriced. So I don't consider this a good investment for EU, at least for the time being, until we get like a good amount of Pokemon Center ETBs at some point. Now, if the ETBs are overpriced and you want to buy from a set that is like 3 to 4 months old, but the price of an ETB is, I don't know, 150 euros right now, just buy the ETB and buy the remainder in booster bundles, or you can choose to buy only booster bundles from that set. And I would advise to buy ETBs and booster bundles mostly from specialty sets, like because there's no booster box. It doesn't make sense to buy anything else from my point of view. Yes, there are UPC boxes and what have you, and booster bundle displays, but I think they are mostly sometimes over budget, over 250 euros. If they are in the span of the 250 euro, then it's perfectly fine to buy that as well because those are the products that are fairly limited and have mostly like good promo cards in them as well. But now let's talk about if none of this applies to you somehow, like if the identification of this set doesn't make sense, like it doesn't have good chase cards, no artist, no hype, no nothing, what you should do next. My advice is to look at raw cards that are already 5 to 6 months on the market from day of release. 5 to 6 months is like the time when most of the product has been already opened and most of the cards have hit the market. And in most cases, like vast majority of cases, these prices are at the lowest point in that time frame. I know that people are in FOMO every time a new set releases and they think like the prices won't get cheaper. Please don't buy raw cards at release. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, if you see that there's this flattening phase, the flattening effect in the 5 6 month span of from today's date, which in this case I think it's probably even Ascended Heroes, I would assume. I think I bought Ascended Heroes raw cards recently. So if it's that set, look at what you would like to chase, what you think is the best buy, what are the hype Pokemons, what's the art style, what do you think is the best place where you should put your money in, and try to use your budget to buy only those raw cards and have them. Like the raw cards, they appreciate nicely when it's English. Okay, so if you don't see any good chase cards from today that are 5 to 6 months old, what now? What do I do otherwise? The next step would be, and this is a little bit of a tricky thing because if there's another good set, then you should look at PSA 10 slabs or CGC 10 slabs or BGS slabs or whatever slabs you try to collect or invest in, and you will see that the flattening effect after 5 to 6 months happens also with the graded slabs. And in most cases, the graded slabs tend to increase much quicker. but you would be able to buy less for the amount that you currently have, and you might be even left with a lot of money left over to the next month, which means that you would still be able to buy probably like raw cards if you choose to do so, but you need to also consider like the shipping costs. So in terms of that strategy, a PSA or a graded slab overall is a good investment if you can spend your entire budget on it, I would say. Or if you're able to buy multiple slabs at once and spend your budget, right? Because they can appreciate fairly well in the span of 2 to 3 years. Now, again, if you aren't able to buy good PSA 10 slabs, if there's not a good set or a good chase card that you think is worthy of investing in, then look at the raw Japanese equivalents of the sets that are currently on the market without the theme of the 5 to 6 months old grace period. It just means that the Japanese equivalents, since they are of higher quality and they are equivalent in terms of art but not the language, you can still have them as a collectible for you to have. And later on, if you buy these, the last possible outcome that you can do with either the English raw cards or the Japanese cards that you bought, you can grade them yourself if you bought copies that are of high good quality, because normally on card market, I know that eBay lets you choose more easily, but there I don't really like to buy from eBay. I at least have better experience from the EU as a European buyer on the card market, even though I know card market is not that transparent when it comes to quality of the cards, and even the images, you can upload only one image, but I don't really mind that because even the raw cards increase in value over time. But if you are subject to buy only good quality cards, then I would overall skip the theme of buying raw cards if you are not an advocate for that. I personally like to buy these raw cards in quantities just because every now and then you will find that the seller gave you like a really good quality card and you can put it away for some time and have it in some kind of extra box. And when you see there would be like a price increase in terms of like the slabbed equivalent of that card, I personally think that it makes sense for you to grade it yourself if you are keen to review the card and you think that you have a good eye for grading cards and gouging the quality of the card. Then feel free to do so. Otherwise, just stick with sealed product and graded cards. I think that's the best approach that you can do. And if you follow this approach, then I think you will be very happy just because of the fact that you will know that you also will hold good product as an investment in terms of sealed and slabs at least. And if you enjoy the cards, then also the raw cards will make sense to you. Now, this is an investment space, so don't expect the prices to increase like over 1 year. We're talking about a span of 3 to 5 to 10 years overall. Now, I don't think that I personally will hold product longer than that, just because when I look at the data, even this after the Sun and Moon era, I know the price increases are much bigger than that. But the Sun and Moon era at least makes sense for me purely from the fact that the generational gap when you are a small child and you see your favorite Pokemon and on the TV, on streams or wherever, and you play the games and what have you, you don't have the money, but then when you come of age and you start working, you have the capital to buy those cards. So I think those kinds of generational things and gaps play into your favor where you kind of force the people that were young then to buy their favorite cars from that era now, right? If it gets to the later point, I don't think there's many people that will buy those cards. I'm not talking about like huge companies that have huge bankrolls that will buy out everything all at once. I'm talking about normal people like you and I, which have only like these 250 euros budget per month, right? So stick to the plan, and I think you will be very happy with the return on investment in this case. Now, this is one slide, and then we have a very last slide. So why this order? I think this is mostly like a summary because I already talked about it. So English sealed is overall king. You don't have to think about that twice. Sealed Japanese, I'm not commenting on just because I don't have the data for Europe and I haven't checked that personally. And I know it's much harder to attain like Japanese products, even though I know there's like services like Buy and stuff where you can buy those products. But I personally feel like even though they cost like 50 euros per box, the return on investment is not that big, but I can be mistaken because time has proven every time, and this is not like financial advice or whatever, but time has proven that the return on investment for good sets tends to increase the value of those boxes when it's a good set. So the second order was raw cards, and basically raw cards floods the market after 5 to 6 months, so it's the cheapest entry point where it comes to like these raw cards. In the past, like even sealed product kind of worked this way, but not in modern times, so that rule kind of goes out the window. The same goes for like rated slabs, the 5 to 6 month window. But the amount of raw cards that you can buy is much bigger than the slabbed cards. So I think there's a much bigger rating opportunity as well in terms of like the return on investment. If you think about it, like if you grade yourself, then the price of that slab is way cheaper for you as the grader, but that's just a cautionary thing that you need to take into account that it's not for everyone. But in terms of, for example, like the graded nines, I'm an advocate to, if you're not a fan of raw cards, you can go for graded nine cards if they make sense. And I will make a video separate from this one where it makes sense to invest in nines and what's the logic behind that. So if you see no raw opportunity, graded slabs are a good investment because they can only go up if you identify like a really good slab. And overall, keep in mind that every type of investment that I'm talking about needs to adhere to the rules that we had um, in the previous slide, which was that it needs to be like top 30 Pokemon, nostalgia, art, and what have you. Otherwise, these rules that I at least laid out for myself don't work. I experienced that, and I also discussed it in the previous video where it just shows. So I think either English or Japanese is fine, whether it comes to sealed or raw or slab product. It's just that Japanese products, uh, they the return on investment is much smaller in that case. Like they appreciate much. Uh, apologies. They appreciate not that quick, very slowly. Grading yourself is risky if you are not experienced. So yeah, so gouging the quality of a card takes some skill, um, sometimes you just have to grade yourself in order to get a feel of how to gauge the condition of a card. And once you get the hang of it, you can gain an additional skill that can make you some money in the future by doing this the correct way. But it is not recommended for like everyone. So it can be a huge loss in investment, but also a good learning opportunity for people that would like to start grading. And I will talk about grading also in another video. So to sum it up, the decision making or the decision split that was there means that if you have like a 250 € budget, what you should do depending on the prices of the products, where for example, if you have a booster box that costs 130 €, which is not realistic, I know, but previously when I started investing, it was that way. At least I had the like upper ceiling where I told myself like, hey, I will buy two booster boxes, but until the ceiling hits like 120 € just because there's also shipping cost involved. So I could buy two booster boxes. But then when the ceiling broke, I kind of didn't buy from that particular set. I just bought something else. But then it hit me that we have also like specialty sets and there's only like ETBs. So you can or could probably like buy an ETB for 90 euros, which would bring your total to 220. And for the remainder, you could buy like raw cards of whatever kind you saw fit, or if the shipping was like too expensive, then I guess the remainder was gobbled up by shipping. So if I were to speak about 250 euros in like the brutto quantity, it's like one booster box, one ETB, and some raw cards, not including shipping. But this can vary. Like you can also switch to like buying two ETBs, one booster bundle, or something like that. Depends on the amount of money that the prices are currently at. Or you can buy just booster bundles of a specialty set. It really, really varies. But just make sure you combine the cost in such a way that you spend the most out of your budget, because that long term is like compound investing and it will yield your returns. You can be assured of that. So yeah, I guess the summary of it is that if you choose to, you can stick to the rules that I laid out. If you choose not to, that's your own thing. That's perfectly fine. You can adjust the rules as you see fit, whatever preference you have in terms of like the investment vehicles that are laid out. It's perfectly fine and up to you. Like everyone is different. But for me, this kind of works, and I like the way to approach it because I'm also like a collector-ish, I would say, depending on the circumstance of what is being bought at that current month that I have the budget for. So if you have a bigger budget, good for you. If you have a smaller budget, same principles apply. Just identify the right play and go with it. So I wish you the best of luck, and this was it. So thank you very much for your attention. If you like this kind of video, feel free to give a like and subscribe. This was Poke Viking with a W, and I will see you next time.